Hello everyone, and welcome to a Dark Souls beginner walkthrough series. Before I start, I just wanted to point out a couple things. If you're playing on PC, there's a couple things you should get that'll really help your game experience. The first thing is this Dark Souls connectivity mod, DSCM for short. You do have to opt out of the betas in Steam. Um, Make sure you don't have any beta selected because it uses its own servers and stuff. Um, so what this does is it allows you to connect to other players a lot easier and more efficient than the base game. Part of Dark Souls 1's main problem is that you really couldn't connect with your friends very easily or really with others unless it was a super popular game and just everybody was playing. So back when this launched and everybody had it and they were having fun with it and it was really popular, this really wasn't an issue. But if you're trying to play now, especially with a friend or other people in general, this is going to make your world a lot easier, and I'm sure there are guides to get that all set up and installed. Um, the other thing is you're going to want to get DS Fix. It's another thing, I'm sure there are guides to get it. Basically, there's an INI file that you can edit, and it edits a few things for you by default anyway to make the game better, look better, sound better, whatever. But in this INI file, there's settings, graphic settings, and whatnot, and one of them, if you have a good PC, is you can unlock the frame rate from 30 frames to 60 frames. Now, the game really isn't designed to be run at 60 frames, so you are going to have some glitches. Might have character models and stuff kind of spazzing out a little bit, or you might phase through an object. It's really not a big deal, though. I haven't had too many issues with it, but I would definitely recommend it because it makes things a lot smoother. In addition to mods that will maybe cause this game to freak out a bit, um, this isn't the best PC port of a game ever. It's not terrible by any means, but there are some bugs and stuff anyway. So that's something to look out for, but overall it's a great game and that shouldn't stop you from playing it. If you run into a couple things that seem kind of weird, that's why. When building a character, if you're having trouble coming up with a name, what I like to do is, earlier when I was talking, you saw my name character box fill up with a whole bunch of random letters. I try to pronounce part of it, or some of it, or all of it, or whatever. Come up with a name. Maybe you get a name from another game, like this one is from Diablo 2. Um, so, just toy around with it, see if you can find anything that sounds good to you. Um, Even just be some random name. The only thing that being male or female does for your character is style. There's no game impact, there's no like males have more stamina or whatever, and female have more health or anything like that. Like Knights of the Old Republic kind of did something like that. There's nothing like that in this game. So really, armor just looks a little bit different depending on what sex you are. Now, in terms of classes, there's a lot of classes to choose from. I would choose warrior or knight. Those are probably pretty standard, nice, even classes. This wanderer character, he has high dexterity, which we'll talk about later. The thief does too, but the most important thing with the thief is that he has the master key. And that's just something he has by default. And basically what it does is it allows you to access parts of the game that you shouldn't be able to access right away. It opens pretty much all early locked doors, which you would normally need another key you would have to go find, but we're not going to choose that because we're going to do a normal walkthrough. So if you're first playing, we'll just try to stay away from like the bottom 5. The Hunter, the Sorcerer, the Pyromancer, the Cleric, and Deprived. All of them are a little more difficult to use because in addition to building your character for your sword and your shield, you're also going to have to worry about stats for ranged stuff like magic, or for the hunter, the bow. You're also going to have to worry about other stats so that you can actually use the spells. And then Deprived doesn't have anything, which is a really hard start, but he does have even stats. On the left, you can see it says level 6 and then 11 straight down. That is why you choose Deprived, is because he's an even stat. He can turn into any class near the end of the game. Really, all of this gear that you see and all the weapons and everything, you can pick up in the game. It's all available to you, even all these items in this list. So I'm going to choose Warrior. It's a nice even build, something that you would probably want if you're first starting. Out of all the items in this list, I would probably choose Black Firebomb, maybe, or the Master Key. If you're a thief, don't choose the Master Key because you get it by default. Or the Old Witch's Ring. The Tiny Being's Ring says that HP will recover over time. It doesn't. That's a lie. It actually just gives you more base health. So if you have 700 health, this might give you 730. So I wouldn't choose that. Again, you can pick it up later if you really want it. For the sake of not doing any shortcuts or anything, I'm just going to choose the Old Witch's Ring. Even though it says it doesn't really have a use, it kind of does. Nothing that fantastic, though. In terms of faces, I don't really like any of the faces except for the bottom one, so I usually choose him. And then you've got all your hair. I usually choose short and gold for my color. And then, you gotta choose your physique. That's something I forgot to do. So you can choose average, slim, very slim. This doesn't change anything either. You can be the fattest character ever, or you can be the skinniest character ever. Nothing's really gonna change. And now it's time for the backstory.
In the age of ancients, the world was unformed, shrouded by fog. A land of grey crags, arched trees, and everlasting dragons. But then there was fire, and with fire came disparity. Heat and cold, life and death. And of course, light and dark. Then from the dark they came and found the souls of lords within the flame. Nito, the first of the dead. The Witch of Izalith and her daughters of Chaos. Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, and his faithful knights. And the furtive pygmy, so easily forgotten. With the strength of lords, they challenged the dragons. Gwyn's mighty bolts peeled apart their stone scales. The witches weaved great firestorms. But soon the flames will fade, and only dark will remain. Even now, there are only embers, and man sees not light, but only endless nights. And amongst the living are seen carriers of the accursed dark side. Yes, indeed. The dark sign brands the undead. And in this land, the undead are corralled and led to the north. Where they are locked away to await the end of the world. This is your fate.
And there you have it, your Dark Souls backstory. Very, very confusing. You probably have no idea what they were talking about or what's really going on. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but basically, undead are kind of a plague. You're cursed, and normal humans don't like you, so they lock you up into cells and wait for you to just die or whatever. You can't really die because you're undead, but they wait for you to just sit here and for something to happen. But some guard just threw down a body with the key on it, and so we're going to continue. All the little orange signs on the floor in the beginning here are from the developers, and it's telling you how to play. Um, you really don't have that great of equipment at the very beginning. You have this little sword, and you have your armor for whatever class you chose. You will pick up the shield and sword or whatever that you saw for your character later in this area, but for right now, they don't give it to you. And up here, you're going to reach your first bonfire, and you got to light them, and then rest at it, and anytime you die, you'll come back to this spot. So now, before we continue, I'll go over character stuff a little bit. So the tutorial was just telling us that your right bumper on a Xbox controller will make a normal attack, and your right trigger will do a power attack for your right-handed weapon. You can press Y to two-hand your weapon, which will cost more stamina, but you'll do more damage. And there's a normal and power attack for that as well. Some weapons have different types of attacks, like thrusting or slashing, depending on if you're one-handing or two-handing. You have 2 weapon slots in each hand, so you can switch at any time by pressing right on the D-pad to switch from your right hand weapon 1 to your right hand weapon 2, and the same for your left. Down will scroll through consumable items, which we don't have, and up will switch through spells, but we don't have any of those either. So your first tab when you pause is your inventory, and you have consumable items, and then you have upgrade items, which is this spot. Then you have keys, spells, weapons and shields, and that'll include like sorcerer staffs. And then you have arrows, armor, and rings. So then we go over here to equipment, and you can select your straight sword hilt here. And you can see some stuff on that screen. If you press X, you can switch different screens. This one tells you like the backstory of it, or how you got it, or where it came from, or whatever. And the other one will teach you the stat screen, which we'll talk about later. This is where all your consumables go. This is where your arrows and bolts go. This is where rings go. I'm going to unequip this because you don't need it. This is where all your armor goes, and you can change armor, unequip armor, everything here. You can also read up on the armor and the stats just like you can with weapons. So here's the stat screen, and we've got, you know, physical defense and magic defense and all that fun stuff just from wearing this piece of armor. You've got the weight, the durability, which really isn't too much of an issue. Some resistances to curse, poison, and bleed, and we have no poise, which heavier armor gives you poise, which makes you less likely to be staggered, which is nice to have. But we'll cover all that later. For now, I'm just kind of scrolling through my stuff and accidentally unequipping it to find a piece that has poise. So the helmet here for the warrior has 5 poise. But if you take all of it off, I roll faster, I jump faster, I move faster in general. I have like no equipment weight. So your equipment also determines your speed of your character. And you can increase your endurance stat to carry more, which we'll talk about later. But if you find that you're moving too slow, you can unequip some armor, and then you can now move faster like I can. When you're all ready, after you're done looking at all the boring stuff, we can move on to the first area here behind this door. And if you look up before you enter the room, you can actually see that there's a giant demon up there who's going to fall down and attack us. You're not supposed to fight this thing right now. So don't try it. Just run straight through. These messages on the floor will tell you to go left. Go through this door. It closes. You're safe. It's going to make noise, but everything's fine. This is where you need to go. It's totally intentional. There are other messages in this area from other players that may or may not be helpful. That one's from a developer. You can tell based on the icon, but that one says, get your shield. So you get your heater shield if you're a warrior, or any other shield depending on what class you are, if that class even has a shield. And more developer notes, just telling you how to block. That's a player note. The icon's different. And I'll pick up the longsword for the warrior class. Just much better than that sword hilt. And that's how you change weapons and everything. It's teaching you all that. So now we're going to kill this guy. Shouldn't be too difficult. Probably no more than 3 swings with any class. And then there's this wall that looks kind of crumbly. Come over here, you can actually see that the guy that helped us is in here. So we're going to try and get him out in just a second. If you go left, there's this item. We can't get to it right now. We'll come back to this area later. If you run down here, you can open this door, and that's a shortcut to the bonfire that we rested at, the very first one. And then you want to avoid getting hit by that boulder, because that breaks the wall. And then you want to run up here and kill this guy. You can also lock and unlock. You can fight if you're locked on or not locked on. It doesn't matter. Lock on just helps you stay attached to the enemy so you don't lose him. So this guy is going to tell us a little story and tell us about our journey.
Lose my sanity. I wish to ask something of you. You and I were both undead. Hear me out, will you? Regrettably, I have failed in my mission, but perhaps you can keep the torch lit. There is an old saying in my family: "Thou who art undead art chosen, and thine exodus from the undead asylum maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringest the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know." Well, now you know, and I can die with hope in my heart. Oh, one more thing. Here, take this. An Estus flask, an undead favorite. Oh, and this. Now I must bid farewell. I would hate to harm you after death. So go now, and thank you.
So basically what he tells us is that our journey is to go on this pilgrimage and to ring a bell that doesn't really sound like it's part of the main story. But it is, and it'll become clearer later. When you leave the room, he will die. You'll get some souls. So I went from 40 to 140. Anything that dies in this game will give you souls, no matter what enemy or whatever. So he gave us 100, and we'll be able to use that to upgrade our weapons or level up or buy things. They're experience, money, and like upgrade material. It's a little bit of everything. So you want to conserve them and try not to lose them. Over on the right side, if you're a spellcaster character, you might find another body with an item on it. That item is your casting thing. If you choose Pyromancer, you're going to get a Pyromancer's Flame or Pyromancy Glove. I can't remember what they call it in this game. It's a red hand symbol. If you choose Sorcerer, you're going to get a Sorcerer's Staff or Sorcerer Catalyst. And if you choose Cleric, you're going to get a Talisman. Over here, they're teaching you some more advanced techniques of backstabbing and parrying and riposting. So, this is a parry. Has to be pretty well timed. You get a decent window to do everything in. But if you do a successful parry, you'll hear the first sound, and then you press right bumper, and you'll get the riposte. And the timing is a little weird, so it's going to take some practice. But if you do that, you're going to get a really good critical hit, which will one-shot a lot of these early enemies. That's another message from a player. You can rate messages that you see by pressing the back button on an Xbox controller, and then you can rate it positive. We were lucky enough, he dropped another shield, but it's really not that great. It weighs almost double for really no stat increase. So there's no real reason to get it or use it unless you don't have this shield. When you walk through, we're going to fight this thing now, but we got our weapons, and you can do a plunging attack. Anytime you're above an enemy, while you're falling down, you can press right bumper and you'll do a plunging attack. Specifically on this boss, they're going to make you do a super critical that takes about half of its health away for you. And this is where you're going to learn a lot of your combat, like dodging and rolling and blocking and all of that. So I will try to talk through that as best I can. So really, when you're fighting, the key thing to do is try not to drain all of your stamina, and try to roll when you can against really big bosses like this, because more than likely you're going to lose whatever stamina you have left. This boss doesn't do too much damage, and we have our Estus flasks to heal. So you can drink one whenever you get a chance. Enemies can still hit you while you're doing that, so you want to be careful. There's no pausing or anything in this game, so, you know, take advantage of your time. There are running attacks you can do, by sprinting and pressing right bumper, and you'll be able to do a running attack that does more damage, and two-handing your weapon does more damage too. So really just go at this boss with pretty much everything you got. You should be able to take most of the hits. Shouldn't be too difficult. And then when you defeat it, it's gonna die, explode into all this white sparkly stuff. You're gonna get a key and a humanity, which we'll talk about what to use that for later. And you'll get souls. 2,000 actually, which is really nice. Because at this stage we were getting like 20 or 40. We got 100 from the one night guy. So it's actually kind of a lot for now. When you're running up here, if you go to the right, then you will see this bird's nest, which is for trading some items with an NPC thing. I'll talk about that in a later video, but I wanted to point it out where it's at. And then when you're ready to leave this area, you come up here to the cliff. You can read some messages and stuff. And we'll continue on with the story.
Only in the ancient legends it is stated that one day an undead shall be chosen. To leave the undead asylum in pilgrimage to the land of the ancient lords. Lordran.
And now we have arrived at Firelink Shrine, which is like your main bonfire that you're pretty much always going to come back to. First thing here is that we're able to do more things at this bonfire than we could at the other one, or other ones that we sat at. You can level up, which I'm not going to do right now. You can kindle, and you can reverse hollowing. You need to have humanity to kindle, and you need to be human to kindle. And in order to become human, you also have to have humanity, which I will do later, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But if you come over here and talk to this guy, he's basically just going to tell you a little bit about your journey.
But there's no celebration here. You'd have done better to rot in the undead asylum. Well, since you're here, let me help you out. There are actually two bells of awakening. One's up above in the undead church. The other is far, far below, in the ruins at the base of Blight Town. Ring them both, and something happens. Not much to go on. So, off you go. It is. Your face. But who knows? Going hollow could solve quite a bit. What? Restoring your humanity? Well, there are a few ways to go about it. Collect it bit by bit from corpses. Or you can butter up a cleric and get yourself summoned. And the quickest way, although I never do it, is to kill a healthy undead and pillage its humanity. Coveting thy neighbor is only human, after all. What are you looking at? Don't try anything clever. What? You want to hear more? Oh, that's all. Well, listen carefully then. One of the bells is up above in the undead church, but the lift is broken. You'll have to climb the stairs up the ruins and access the undead burn through the waterway. The other bell is back down below the undead berg, within the plague blighter, but I'd die again before I step foot in that cesspool. Bloody, you are. I'm not.
So what he tells us is that there are 2 bells now instead of 1, and apparently the other guy didn't know that when he sent us here, and that the first one is up top and that there's another one below. The fastest way to get up top is to take a lift, but it doesn't work, so we're going to have to go through a waterway, which we'll use to progress the game in a little bit. But we're going to spend probably the next 10-15 minutes just running around talking to people and grabbing items that are around here.
I believe we are not acquainted. I am Petrus of Firelink. Have you business with us? If not, I prefer to keep a distance, if possible. Hello there. I realize that I have requested that we retain our distance, but I also want you to know that it is not meant in ill will. Here, take this. No, go ahead. It's for you. Oh my. Oh, I know. How about this? I have to await my companions here anyway. So what if I were to teach you some miracles? Would that
Basically,
please you?
just keep talking to him. He'll ask for the miracles, and you can say yes.
A covenant with
And miracles are a type of magic, so just say yes. And when it says join covenant, say yes. Because you're going to want to join this one anyway. If you're the knight, you're already in it, so nothing really happens, but it's going to make that funny sound. And now he'll be a shopkeeper for selling cleric type stuff, which is really nice if you chose the cleric as your start. But we didn't, and I suggested you didn't because magic and miracles and faith and all this other stuff is kind of a complicated thing. But if you did, you might be able to use some of these items that he's selling. It's a long process. I'm not going to get into it right now. Maybe in a future video I'll cover something like this. But for now, you can see he sells a couple talismans, again, cleric stuff, and some miracles, which is basically cleric magic. You can talk to him again, and he'll tell you about the people he's traveling with.
Burdened by an undead mission. We are her defenses, to keep her from harm. An undead mission? But you are my pupil.
You don't have to do this. I'm going to show you what happens.
Given a mission to seek kindling. Kindling is the art of feeding bonfires with humanity. Through kindling, we shall one day be granted magnificent powers.
So he tells you a little bit about kindling, and we saw kindling back at our bonfire. So basically, if you have humanity, which we'll cover later, just in a little bit here, but if you have humanity and you give it to a bonfire, it will be stronger, which is why Firelink Shrine gives you 10 flasks instead of the 5 that we got earlier. This chest here, I want to point it out because it's not really a widely known thing, but it's open. If it's ever closed, open it, because that's where all your key items and stuff required for progression in the game go if there is a glitch. So say you needed a key to fight a required boss and it didn't give you that key, you go back to that chest and check it there. It should give it to you. We'll run around a little bit here and collect some more items, but I looked at the cemetery behind. We'll cover that in just a second. But you're going to want to run up the stairs and not fall down like I did. I'm going to have to go all the way back up and around. Cemetery's back there. Go up the stairs. Run around like this. And we'll grab this item over here, which is a crushable soul. So that soul might be worth 200 mini souls, if you want to call them that. Basically, that's safe. Nothing's going to happen to it until we decide to use it, and we can use that when we want to upgrade our character a little bit. So, as that message says, be wary of skeletons. All these bones in the ground, they're gonna form skeletons, and skeletons are actually kind of a tough enemy to fight right now. So this is a suicide run. Do not do this if you plan on staying alive, because you'll more than likely die. I've made this run several times by myself on several different occasions, so I kind of got it down. But I would level up or something, get rid of your souls, and then make this run. But there's a lot of awesome items to be had in this area. There's this Zweihander weapon, which is an ultra great sword for strength users. Binoculars aren't that great, but the Zweihander is. There's a shield that's alright, a soul, and if you run up here, then you go here, you get a winged spear, which is a nice spear to have. And then we'll run back up these stairs here. And I find the best way to lose the skeletons on your tail, if you're still alive and you made it this far, is to run up here, jump, and then run over here and jump this low spot here. Skeletons typically get hung up on stuff like that, and then you can rest and they won't show up here. If you don't do that and you run straight back here, there's a good chance they'll actually show up at Firelink Shrine and attack you. So resting resets all enemies, so all the skeletons are now back to crumbled pieces and won't wake up until we go back there again. So now we're going to run up here, and we're going to grab this item up the stairs. Really, they give you a lot of gear in Firelink if you know where to look. And this is this broken lift that one guy was talking about. But you can go down and through this little hallway, and we now have chests with items in it. And in here, we're going to get some homeward bones. I'll talk about those in a little bit. And we get a morning star and a talisman. And we'll get some cracked red eye orbs, which I'll discuss at some future date. And we come over here and we get Lloyd's talismans, which are actually consumables. It's kind of a deceptive name. You would think you equip it like a normal talisman, but you don't. And we're back to the cemetery. If you run up the stairs and take the path back to Firelink, like I just did, you'll be safe from the skeletons. They might not even be following you because we ran up that path so quickly. And then you run and jump over here and back to the bonfire and rest. So that resets everything, and now we've pretty much grabbed everything up here that we can get. So now I'm going to take my souls and I'm going to level up. Typically the first stats that you want to level up are vitality, strength, and dexterity, but you can see here I have 1880 for souls, and it costs 724 for this one level, so I can level up at least once. And I have 11 vitality, and I can scroll down and see all the other stats too, like attunement here, and endurance, and strength, and dexterity, and whatnot. To see this screen, you press the back button, and it can do all this dark stuff and tell you what strength and dexterity do, resistance, all this fun stuff for stats. This is kind of the boring character part, but we got to talk about it so you can build an effective character. There's the faith stat that you need to cast miracles, and you have humanity over here, which is you have a counter for humanity that says we have 0 humanity right now in our counter, but we actually have some crushable consumable ones that we can use, and we'll get into that in a little bit here. But you got all your other stats like poise and HP, and your resistances. You also can see item discovery and attunement slots. We have 0 attunement slots, which means even if we had spells and the right stats to use them, we couldn't equip them. So I'm going to throw a couple points into strength and dexterity, and we'll dive deeper into stats in a future video probably, but basically strength and dexterity, as they're the foundation for using melee weapons. And when we picked up all those items, it automatically fills your consumable inventory, which I don't really like, so I go ahead and unequip that. And that's pretty much it for the Firelink Shrine area right now. We could kind of go down and collect a couple more items, but we're not going to worry about that. Before we head up, I think I'll cover the humanity thing, sort of, right now. So there's two ways to use it. You can go into here in your inventory and you can do use item. It will use 1 humanity. Or you can equip it into your consumable slot and press the X button on an Xbox controller. So now we have a 0-1 next to our health. I'm going to unequip the humanity. And that is what they call soft humanity. And the thing we popped is called hard humanity. It's not technically called that, but it's like the canon term for it. You need a soft humanity, so a counter next to your health bar has to have at least 1 for you to reverse hollowing and become human. And then you need another soft humanity to kindle a bonfire. You can tell when you're hollow or when you're human by the humanity icon. This is bright and it's glowing white for human, and it's grayed out and dark and faded for hollow. Also, your character actually has skin and looks like a human character instead of a kind of rotting away zombie character. When you die, you go back to hollow. So only pop humanity when you are pretty certain you're not going to die. I was popping it to show you what humanity kind of is and how you use it and what you do with it. So basically, humanity allows you to do online interaction, which we don't really have anything to do online interaction with, but you want humanity to co-op with friends or to invade other players and kill them. You can do that too, but we're not going to do any of that really unless we have to. And so yeah, that's the basic use for humanity, is for online play. You can also get invaded if you're human too. So if you're worried about players joining into your world without your consent and coming over and killing you, then you don't want to be human. But it also means that you can't co-op with your friends. So it's a risk-reward thing, which we can't even co-op with friends right now anyway, because we need to defeat another boss to actually be able to be summoned into another person's world. You can summon other people in a little bit when we get to Undead Burg, but that means they've beaten the boss already and they want to help you, which you can do, that's fine, but you yourself will not be able to help others until you beat the next boss, which we're not going to do in this video. So after you kind of run around and grab a couple more items, you're going to want to come up to the waterway here. I guess there's another item back here. So we're going to run over here, and we're going to go left and kill this giant rat, which giant rats have a better chance of dropping humanity than most enemies. In fact, they're one of few enemies that can actually give you a consumable, crushable, hard humanity that we had to use. So if you see the giant rat, you can kill him and hope for one. But that door back there said that it can't open from this side. Not that we can't open it in general, but it can't open from this side. Which means that at some point we'll be able to go behind it and it'll be a shortcut back to this area. That'll be in the next video, or video after that probably. So we're just going to run through here and kill a few enemies. You might get ambushed. You can try your luck on a few backstabs or something. Backstabs don't do as much damage as a parry and riposte, but they do a lot of damage still, and they're easier to pull off. We'll grab yet another item. They give you plenty of items to start this game, really, if you know where to look. Never mind the dragon. He's just showing up. He's not going to bother us for a little bit. And out here, you're going to be ambushed by a couple enemies, so just do your best to ward them off. The beauty of choosing a warrior class or a knight class is that you can two-shot most enemies so far. So you don't really have to worry about struggling to kill most enemies. Here's a summon sign. This is an actual live player that's on right now. And I could summon him right now if I wanted to go help with this area and the boss. But I'm not going to right now. I'm going to go here and talk a little bit more about character creation and stuff, and humanity, and all that fun stuff. Objects like this can typically be rolled through. There are some objects that you need to hit to break, but you can roll through most small things. And let's talk about character stuff here. So I guess the first thing I'll do here is I'm going to drink all my Estus flasks to show the flask count thing correctly. So I had 9 when I ran through here, and now I have 5. And I can't go any higher because this bonfire is not kindled to give me more flasks. Firelink Shrine is one of few bonfires in the game to, by default, let you have 10 flasks when you rest at it. Most will offer 5. So say we want to get this up to 10. We would need a soft humanity in our counter, so instead of 0-0 up by the health and stamina bars, we would need a 0-1, and it also must be white like mine is, so you must be human. So you will need at least 2 humanity to kindle a bonfire to the next step. So I'm human, I'm going to use 1. And then now I have 1 soft humanity. And you go to Kindle, and you say yes. And this is going to make the bonfire get stronger. We go from 0-1 to 0-0. And if we actually watch here, you can see the fire in the bonfire here grow in size. The flames will now reach a little taller. So now we have 10 flasks instead of 5 for this whole area. And this is just kind of a demonstration. It helps early game. And now we have 10 flasks here. So anytime we rest here, we will have 10 flasks. That will never go away, no matter if you die or whatever. It doesn't change anything else other than number of flasks, so I'm just going to go ahead and level up right now. Give myself another point into strength. And I should probably talk a little bit more about weapons and armor and stuff like that. So back in the equipment screen, we got armor. It tells us all this stat stuff, and it tells us, you know, the background. It's sturdy and made of iron and very common and not much to it. Basically, it's not fantastic. Nothing unique about it. If we go to the shield, you can go here and we've got this stat screen that gives us a whole bunch of numbers. And I'm going to use my mouse at some point here to point out the numbers. That'll be easier. So my screen will shake a little bit, but we have the attack category. So if I was to actually equip this shield and try to use it as a weapon, it would do 60 plus 4 damage, or a total of 64. And then it's got critical, magic, fire, and lightning. The critical, you can't do critical attacks with a shield, so that's not really helpful. And it doesn't do any elemental stuff. So as a weapon, it's not a great weapon. But there are other things that you need to use a weapon effectively. So I'm going to use my mouse here to point out some stuff. This arm here is strength. It says D. And then this hand is dexterity. Got nothing. That little torch thing is intelligence. And this star here is faith. This D is what's giving me my 4 extra points of damage. So normally without any stats whatsoever, this weapon would do 60, but because I have my 15 strength here, it's got a descaling, which is not very good, but it does give me some extra damage as a weapon, and that's not very critical for a defensive thing like a shield. What you're really going to be looking at is the damage reduction side, the right side of the screen. Physical 100, magic 30, fire 70, lightning 50, stability 55. Stability determines how much stamina you lose when you block. So that's really good to have for shields. You also got required parameters, so 8 strength. I need 8 strength to actually equip this weapon and use it, which it's a shield. And then you've got durability and stuff, which really isn't that important right now. For the longsword, now we'll look at the attack stats here for the longsword. We have no elemental stuff, but we have 80 physical plus 16 for a total of 96 damage with this sword. So if an enemy had no damage, no defense, no armor, I would do 96 damage to it. This 16 is because of my stats down here. It's getting a C scaling in strength and a C scaling in dexterity, which means that if I keep putting points into strength and dexterity, I'm going to do more damage with this weapon, and that is average scaling. So it's not fantastic, but you want to level up strength and dexterity pretty much evenly if you're going to use this kind of a weapon. But that's where my plus 16 comes from. And there are other letters, but we can see in the damage reduction side here, if I were to block with the sword by two-handing it, I need 10 strength and 10 dexterity to actually use this weapon, but blocking isn't very good with it. Terrible stability. The durability is not bad for this point in the game, and the weight is 3 pounds. And to just confirm that I'll do 96 damage, if you actually come over to your player status screen, and you go to right weapon 1, where my sword is, it says 96 damage. So that's where that 96 is coming from. I'm doing 80. The sword, unupgraded with no stats whatsoever, does 80. And then because of my stats, it gets an extra 16 points of bonus damage for a total of 96. So you want to build your character around a weapon. You can't build a weapon around your character. But we'll discuss weapons and heavy stuff and all that in the next video probably. But really, that's just a very basic description. Next thing is equip load here. I'm going to look at, it says 21.4 out of 52. And right now my character can do medium actions. Medium roll, medium run, all that. But if I drop off a couple pounds, now I have 12 out of 52. I can actually run faster by default, and sprint faster, and roll faster. Actually do a different rolling animation in general. This is a light roll. And depending on how much weight you have, you can actually do a faster or higher light roll, depending on how much equipment you have. It's very subtle, but it does exist. Or you can do heavier rolls. There's an even heavier roll than the medium roll, but I don't have the stuff to make my character do it. But there are thresholds to each roll, which I'm not going to talk about too much, but I just wanted to show that your equipment load is what determines your rolling speed. It's not a class-based thing or anything like that. So this is just very, very basic understanding of your character, is that equipment's going to determine rolls, and weapons have stats, and your levels are going to determine how much damage they do, and all that kind of stuff. And the last thing I really haven't talked about are gestures. You press back, and you can see a list of gestures, and you can change them. And then you can do these little things like bows or jumps or shrug or whatever. But you can't move at all when you're doing it. So don't do it when you're fighting an enemy, because I can't move at all. And that's pretty much all there is in terms of very basic character creation. We'll cover more in the next video and we'll get more in depth so that you can understand your character better, but that is the foundation for character building. So this video was probably pretty boring just because I have to discuss all the stuff, and next time we'll get into more fighting and a little bit more in depth about character stuff. But that's a very brief overview of Dark Souls and character building. So I hope to see you next time.